Hey everybody, welcome back to Carbon's DIY Garage. Today's project is actually going to be inside the Jeep for once, and I'm going to be replacing the clock spring inside this 1997 Jeep Wrangler TJ to try to recover all the functionality that should be happening that's not. As we get started, of course, if you like the content, if you want to follow along with That Doesn't Sound Right, TDSR, the name of this Jeep, feel free to please subscribe to the channel. Like the video, drop comments and questions, all that good stuff. But let's get into it. So when we say clock spring, what exactly are we talking about? Well, if you own a 3.8 liter Jeep JK or JKU like I do, I have a 2011, you probably know all about clock springs because those clock springs are all going bad, and Jeep has actually extended the warranty on those to get them replaced. I'm going through that right now, actually. So my symptom for my JK is that the airbag light will come on in whenever I'm turning. And so that's a key indicator. So the clock spring passes electrical information from the horn and the airbag down into the steering column. So you need something that can rotate and pass that information along. That's what the clock spring does. When the clock spring goes bad, you start to get error messages. On the JKs, it's very often with the airbag, then your horn can stop working, and then also your turn signals may stop resetting, and that can all be indications of a bad clock spring. On this Jeep TJ, the issue that I'm having is that the horn does not work and the turn signals do not reset. And I'm hoping that this will be corrected by replacing the clock spring. Now, my airbag light does not come on, so there is a good signal path between the airbag and the Jeep. So it's interesting that those signals are getting through, but the horn signal is not, and the turn signals are not resetting. I'm not 100% sure that the clock spring replacement will fix that, but I'm hoping, especially based on Steve over at Force Built having the same problems with JJ on his 2.5 liter TJ, and that fixed his issues. So we're hoping that that works out. Now, replacing the clock spring on the TJ is a pretty inexpensive affair. It's $35 or $40 for a new clock spring off of Rock Auto. I'll put a link in the description for that. On the JK, that clock spring can cost several $100s, and the dealer that's doing the work for me under warranty says that they are VIN matched. I don't really understand how that can actually be true, but they have to order one for me to do the replacement, which is fine because it's all under warranty, so it's no cost to me. But definitely a lot easier, it seems, to do this on the TJ than on the JK. That said, let's get into it. The first things you need to do is make sure that your steering wheel is centered, and then also disconnect the battery terminal, the negative battery terminal, before you do anything, because we're taking the airbag off. And the service manual says make sure you let it sit for at least 2 minutes for the capacitors to discharge. You do not want the airbag to go off in your face. One other thing I want to show you real quick is that previous owner didn't really want to mess with the clock spring, I guess. So to get a functional horn so that he would pass safety inspection, just connected a doorbell directly to the battery and to the horn. So there's the horn button. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the airbag with there's two 5/16 inch socket fasteners here, one on each side of the steering wheel. Just remove those and the airbag will come out. So once you get the airbag pulled out a little bit, there's one connector in the center that connects to the airbag, and then there's another connector for the horn that for some reason previous owner actually had disconnected. So I don't know what the story is behind that. But I actually didn't show it in the video, but I connected this together, tried to see if the horn would magically work, and it does not. So we're going to proceed onwards. Use a small flat screwdriver to pop the airbag connector out. Just that easy. You're going to need a 13/16 inch socket to get the center nut here off the steering wheel. Looking at the clock spring back behind the steering wheel, it looks like it's probably the original. And looking at the rust, I'm thinking this has never been taken apart before. Put a little bit of PB Blaster on there, and I'll use the impact to at least break the torque here on this bolt, on this nut. All right, so now I'm going to use the steering wheel remover, the puller that I borrowed from O'Reilly's to pull the steering wheel off. And to do that, in their kit, this is bolts letter C, so 5/16 inch bolts. Then you've got, what's this called, the H bar, and then you've got the pressure screw. And so we'll assemble that together, just like this. Pressure screw just sits on top of the center bolt here that goes through the steering wheel. And we'll use a 1/2 inch socket to just tighten the pressure screw here and pop the steering wheel off. And it's that simple, it's already free. There we go. Just get your electrical connectors out and steering wheels off. To get access to the Clockspring, the first thing you have to do is remove the plastic shrouds. And to do that, there's 2 Phillips head screws underneath here that you loosen and remove. I have a tilt column, so I can tilt the column down, and then that'll let me remove the top plastic shroud. As I remove this top shroud, I noticed that there's actually a post for a 3rd screw, and feeling around underneath the shroud, there's actually a hole. Apparently previous owner at some point broke this trying to get it apart, so that 3rd screw's not there on mine. But heads up to people who have a less broken Jeep, there's actually potentially 3 screws on the bottom you have to remove. As far as removing this super gross Clockspring, it's really just a matter of getting a good handle on it and wiggling it and pulling it out. It's just a pressure fit. And then at the back, there are 2 connectors that you need to disconnect. Okay, and the connector's free. I absolutely could have removed the ignition cylinder, removed this bottom plastic shroud, but to be honest, I don't know what previous owner may have done to this thing, and so I'm always try to avoid doing more than I absolutely have to. I was able to get this apart without removing the ignition cylinder, and so I just chose to go that route. Taking a look at the new Clockspring, first there's this plastic piece. You don't pull that out until the Clockspring is fully installed and you're ready to release the spring. There's an arrow at the top where the middle is, and you want the middle of this plastic piece to be pointing right at that arrow when you install it. There's 2 clips in the back that go in the clips here in the steering column. That way you know you get it centered and installed properly. And it's a pressure fit, so if you get this lined up in the middle, you get these clips in, and your steering wheel was straight to start with, you should be in good shape. So we'll reconnect the electrical connectors and put it back together. Okay, got it in, it's snapped in place. The electrical connectors all snapped in place. We're gonna go ahead and put the shrouds back on and just basically work backwards from the install. And I'm gonna not pull this until I absolutely have to. Okay, the time has come. I have to pull the plug, so I can get the steering wheel on. So here we go. Still lined up in the center. I'm gonna hold it and pull it. Next, we'll put the steering wheel on. There is a keyway at the center of the steering wheel on the splines, and you want to make sure that that goes onto the spline, the center spline of the steering wheel shaft. You put your electrical connectors through here. And there we go. Steering wheel's on. Now we just need to put the center nut on and get that torqued down. So the nut on the steering wheel gets torqued to 45 foot-pounds. Go. Okay, steering wheel's installed. Next is just to hook up the airbag. 2 connectors, just like when we pulled it off. You've got one for the horn and one for the airbag. So we'll do the horn first, which is the, for me anyway, this red wire. And again, I don't know if the horn switch on the front of this actually functions or not, because previous owner has this other horn setup going. But if the horn switch itself is broken, then that means replacing this entire airbag module. The horn switch is not serviceable, but fingers crossed. Okay, airbag connector snapped in place. Make sure you hear that click. Tuck in your wires and put it back together. I don't know why, but this passenger side bolt was a real pain to get started. I would suggest getting that one started first, and then get the other one on the driver's side started, and then tighten them both up. It might just make it a little bit easier for you. All right, I have the battery reconnected. It's the moment of truth. Let's see how it goes. Ignition on. Got power. And we have airbag light. So, I'm not sure if that's good or not. Let's see if the horn works. Nope, does not work. Thinking this might not work out for me. This Jeep is so weird. So, you saw when I first gave it power, the airbag light came on. I turned the Jeep off. I started the Jeep. We went for a test drive. Airbag light was on. Got in the driveway, turned it off, put the ignition key back in, turned it on. It's not running, but it's on, and airbag light is off. So I guess you just have to cycle it a couple of times. I'll take it as a win. If you notice, my fasten seatbelt light goes off also when the airbag light goes off. I don't have my seatbelt connected right now. Is that a normal thing for TJs? If you know, put it in the comments. Also, I was really hoping to regain the functionality with the turn signal to reset with the new Clockspring. That was really the reason to do this. And that's not happening. It just stays on and I have to turn it off manually. Does that mean that the multifunction switch is broken? Is there a tab broken there? If you have any thoughts on that one, drop it in the comments as well. Well guys, I'm pretty disappointed in the outcome of this project. Goal number 1 still met. I didn't make things worse, although that airbag light had me scared for a little bit. But the turn signals don't turn off by themselves after a turn. The horn doesn't work. So pretty much exactly where I was before I replaced the Clockspring. So it makes me think the Clockspring was just fine. And I guess I should have listened to my inner voice when I said at the beginning of the video the airbag light wasn't coming on, so there was still some good connectivity there. Hopefully the video is instructional and useful for anybody who needs to replace their Clockspring. And I guess I'll just have to either just accept it as it is or try to think of something else for the next step. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments section, and if you want to keep following along with how this Jeep progresses, subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more projects to come. Until that next project, have a good one.